Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Q&A session on the Kirribilli to Cremorne walking cycling streetscape upgrades. Thank you for joining us today. Just letting you know that this is a sort of continuation on from the 25th of May community information session that we hosted for this same project, and so far from that session we've had 33 people go online and view that session. So look, that's been a great response. Today we've got a list of questions that we're going to run through that have been sent to us beforehand. There's quite a few, there's about 20 questions so far, so we're going to answer those questions first. And then hopefully when we've got enough time, we'll be able to answer some more questions that come through online through the chat room. So look, before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and pay my respects to their ancestors and spirits past and present. I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respect to any Aboriginal persons joining us today. My name is Duncan Mitchell and I'm the Director of Engineering and Property Services, and I have with me today Lindsay Mende, who is our Sustainability and Transport Manager. So again, the purpose of today's meeting is to explain the key aspects of the project, respond to the questions that we've received for this session today, which have been sent in prior, and then hopefully with enough time we'll have an opportunity for you to ask further questions, and that we hope that you've learned more about the project and why we're doing this project. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I just would like to remind everyone who's participating in today's online session that your microphone should be muted for the duration of the session. And if you're participating via a computer or smart device, you can use the chat function to submit a question during the session. And alternatively, you may also send any questions that you have to the Your Say at northsydney.nsw.gov.au website, and council staff will be able to provide you with responses to those questions. So Lindsay and I will share these questions, but as I said, we've got quite a few questions to go through, and so I'll start off. We've tried to group them into areas, but we eventually will get to all of your questions. So the first question I've got is concerns regarding Holdsworth Street onto Carrabba Road, and look, these are in no priority order. We haven't listed them in any priority of importance. This is just grouped in areas. So the question is again regarding Holdsworth Street and Carrabba Road. Two issues that do not appear to have been addressed in the plans to date is there's no pathway enabling pedestrians to turn left out of Holdsworth Street onto Carrabba Road. That's essentially the question. And the second one is the pavement turning right out of Holdsworth Street on Carrabba Road is far too narrow and poses a risk to where you essentially have to go into single file. So Lindsay, do you want to maybe answer question A? There's no pathway enabling pedestrians to turn left out of Holdsworth Street onto Carrabba.
I think with both of these, they are, so this is essentially the concept design, and it may be possible in our next round of design, the detailed design, to include some additional pedestrian facilities there, depending on how much space we have and ensuring we comply with required safety guidelines. But I think I'd encourage people to submit suggestions around that, remembering that this is the first round of the design, and where possible, we'll try to incorporate changes that address those issues in the next round of design. It may be possible to improve pedestrian facilities there, but we need a detailed survey and some detailed investigation.
Okay, thanks. So we acknowledge there is a narrow footpath, existing footpath at the moment, and then hopefully this is an opportunity to improve that footpath. Second question is clarification regarding High Street from Clark Road. This one is, please clarify the turn restrictions into and out of the eastern section of High Street into and from Clark Road. Okay, we'll talk louder. Do you want to maybe have...
I might swap seats with you and then I can change those slides. Without the I can do it without the there was an error in the text that we sent out with the original set of plans. So the turn restrictions that are shown on the plans, so that would be a right turn from Clark into High when you're heading away from Kirribilli, and then a left turn into High from Clark when you're heading towards Kirribilli, were shown as restricted on the original set of plans. In the text, it said that the turn out of High and into Clark was to be restricted. That was an error. Notwithstanding all of those comments, since we've received concern from the community around those turn bans, we currently have our traffic signal control consultant looking at an alternative design that retains those turns. Someone asked for the plans to come up here.
We'll just continue on, but we are having a bit of an issue trying to refer to the plans because the PowerPoint presentation that we gave previously is not allowing us to go through the slides individually, but we'll have to continue on while we try and sort that out. So I think Lindsay has answered the question about those turns from High Street and Clark Road. Effectively, they're staying the same. There is no change. Okay?
And that, I might add, that's also the case for the slip lane when you're heading away from Kirribilli on Clark and then turning left into High. Similarly, feedback from the community is that there's a strong preference for that to be retained. So we again are having our design consultants draft up an option that allows for that to be retained.
Okay, so I'll go to the next question. Your outline of the proposed and needed changes hides a very significant issue in the section between Addiston Avenue and High Street. To achieve 2 car lanes and a bike lane of the width shown, you need to move the median strip over a significant length of the road, reducing the lane on the other side of the road. I think we get the gist of this question, and Lindsay's able to provide an answer to you on that one.
Yes, we would have to review and move that median, but any resulting lanes that we provided would be consistent with the minimum requirements or greater under safety standards.
So yeah, we can't go less than what the current road rules allow us, so it would have to be complying, which we're confident the design has shown width for the road. So this is a question in regards to the loss of parking near Wickham Road and Harriet Street Junction. The question is, Wickham Road around Harriet Street Junction already has major parking issues. Removing 5 spaces will add to the problem. What measures are you taking to ensure residents can park a reasonable distance from their homes?
So this has been raised in a couple of submissions, and in response we have sent this back to our design consultant. Again, they're looking at reviewing design to reducing that. Already they've looked at a design option that they are confident will reduce it. I won't give the exact numbers around that because they need to do some detail, but it looks as though that parking impact can be further reduced.
Hi, sorry, I'm not sure this is a forum for Q&A. My name's Andrew Cochrane. I live at 64 Wickham Road. the parking is already an issue along there. That obviously there's only one side of the road because the other side there's a bus stop and there's a junction. The council keeps approving plans. There's obviously Thrupp Street, there's 20 apartments going there. Harriet Street, there's now the aged care, which is getting significantly extended. There's a constant issue of trade vans along there, which is only going to get worse. You're looking to take another 5 spaces out. Also, commuters park there and walk down to get the ferry in the mornings. We've got young children. We don't have off-street parking, and trying to find a space is already a nightmare. And now you're taking 5 spaces out. I mean, my proposition is maybe a 4p parking up there up to Raymond Road to stop people, at least commuters, or leaving their cars there all day, because it's an issue, and I can't see how it's going to get any better.
Yeah, Andrew, look, we'll look into this, and as Lindsay said, this is only consultation at the moment. So what we do with our projects when we consult is that we go out to the community with a concept design, we hear back from the community, and then we make changes to the concept design from what we hear back. So none of this is a fait accompli. We're taking submissions from the community, and we then go and modify the design, make changes as required. So as Lindsay said, we're looking at this issue, and we'll subsequently make whatever required changes are so that we can reduce any impact.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
I might just add also, look, this is not a Q&A session in terms of people being able to ask us specific questions. What I'd like to do is just run through each of the questions, and then when we've finished all the written questions, rather than get into debate on individual questions, come back to any clarifications that people have once we've finished all the questions, because we have got a lot to go through.
Okay, sorry, but I have another meeting at 12:30, so whilst it was on the agenda, I was just getting my piece in. Thank you. Anyway, I'll let you continue.
Yeah. So we'll move on to this. Another question, couple of questions here concerning Mcdougall Street. Lindsay, do you want to look at? I'll read the questions out while you're looking for it. Why not make the western footpath of Dalton Street between Mcdougall and Innis Road an optional shared cycleway for less athletic cyclists?
So we have looked at that based on that feedback. It's more than a metre narrower than the minimum required width, so it would be very difficult for us to put in a shared path there that complied with standards.
Okay. Thank you for that one. The next question on Mcdougall Street is, what increased traffic on Hipwood and Mcdougall between Willoughby and High Streets is expected? Particularly during Jacaranda time, which we all know Mcdougall Street is famous for.
So the additional traffic that would have resulted from this proposal would come from the banning of the 2 turns. I'm hoping everyone can see that now that the PowerPoint's up. If those 2 turns are banned, then the traffic should be as existing, notwithstanding the information around what the impact would have been is that these 2 bans would have resulted in somewhere between 15 and 35 vehicles per hour additionally taking this route.
Okay, thank you for that. Concerns regarding impact on school drop-off during peak time. So we have a question about that. How is council managing congestion in morning and afternoon school drop-off peak times?
Well, now that this intersection here at High and Clark is not proposed to be altered, then the traffic patterns would remain as is. So,
in answer to that question, there's no change. Questions regarding data used to inform the design. So we've got a couple of questions here about what data did you use? Traffic studies, this is the question. Traffic studies are done via an algorithm in Sidra. Why weren't they done manually, or more importantly, why have they not been released to the relevant stakeholders?
So Sidra is essentially the industry standard software for looking at intersection performance. and it uses real data, so it uses traffic counts from the intersection, and far more accurate than anything we could do manually. It's also very conservative in its assumptions. So what Sidra tells us, it'll likely be better than that in the real world. Otherwise, the traffic report there, we currently have our consultant for this project preparing a traffic report. That is only in its draft form now, as we're awaiting feedback from the community, and once design changes have been made and all the community inputs have been considered, we'll make that public traffic report.
Okay.
Is
Yeah, we'll try and do that where we can. So this is again another data question. The North Sydney Integrated Cycling Strategy, previously adopted by Council, said traffic and cycle usage surveys would be carried out at several locations. Do you have any such surveys for the current proposal for Kirribilli and Cremorne? Can we see the data and relevant analysis?
We're able to provide count data to people that you can make a specific request for the area that you would like. We'll be able to give that back to you in email, and there will also be summaries in that traffic report once completed.
Yeah, so the traffic report that will be coming to Council as part of this report on the outcomes of the consultation sessions will include all of that source data and also an analysis of it, so everyone will be able to view it. We don't hide the data here. We're more than happy to share any sort of traffic count or bicycle count or pedestrian count data that we have. There's no utility in the council not providing that. Again, there's quite a few data questions here. Have surveys of vehicular, have surveys of vehicular, ideally, it says here in brackets, differentiating between cars, buses and service vehicles, cyclists and pedestrian movements through Kirribilli been undertaken at various times of the day or weekends? How recently were these surveys undertaken?
There's some going back to around 2015, and then as part of the current traffic report that's been prepared, there should be counts out this week and or next in the area to update that. So there'll be two time periods to compare to.
Yeah. So yes, we have taken survey data, mostly from vehicles, I would say, cars and buses. Have we got any cyclist or pedestrian movement data?
We also have bikes. We won't have historical pedestrian movements in that area, but we could get some for the current trends.
Yeah. Okay. What analysis of points of conflict between these various modes of travel what analysis have you done? I'm trying to, this question is talking about, have we done an analysis of the various modes of travel projected and current in the area? So I think this question is asked, are you looking at the amount of various modes of transport, cars, pedestrians, cyclists, in terms of future movements in the area?
I think all of these things are looked at as part of the background study that informs the traffic impact assessment report. So when that is published alongside the council report, data across all of these areas will be in there to the extent that we have it. It might be that following that, if there's additional requests, please feel free to make them, and we'll try to provide data where possible. Sometimes the difficulty in collecting some of this data outweighs the benefit that we can get it. So as much as possible, we can share that data, or it will otherwise be available in the traffic impact assessment report.
Okay, the next question, this is number 13 so far. Has an allowance been made for recent changes in patterns of use by various transport, COVID restrictions aside, particularly tourism? So I guess it's asking, has this design considered the recent changes in patterns of use by various transport modes, taking out any impacts that COVID-19 might have had?
Yeah, there's some standard adjustments being applied to data, not just across this traffic project, but in all cases. So we know some general trends that have happened under the pandemic conditions, and we are able to apply them in all projects.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. What plans are available showing this cycleway is integrated into the larger cycleway strategy and network for this area?
That will be covered in our North Sydney Integrated Cycling Strategy, and also Transport for New South Wales are currently developing, and hopefully sometime in the not too distant future will release the Principal Bike Network, which is the state government's plan for the entire regional network across the city. And these discussions have been had with Transport around what will and won't be potentially in that network. So we're sort of aware of when neighbouring councils are potentially having cycling links.
Yeah. So this cycleway route, Route 3, is part of the existing integrated cycle strategy that was adopted by this council in 2014. So you can, if you go to that document on our website, you'll clearly see that this route has been in the cycleway strategy since 2014. There are 5 priority routes in North Sydney as part of that strategy that was adopted by council, and we've pretty much completed, I think, over 70% of it. Most of the routes are done. Of the 5 routes, the 5 primary routes are done, and that's what this strategy focuses on. This is one of the last remaining routes. Route 3 is one of the last remaining routes that we have to do to actually complete that 2014 strategy. And we are looking, because the strategy has basically been implemented and completed, with the exception of Route 3, we are now looking at and putting together a new strategy ourselves, because we've pretty much completed the old one. The next question, another analysis data question if you like. What surveys and analysis has been undertaken with the different types of cyclists? So this is purely talking about cyclists. What sort of cyclists will be using this route?
There's probably work for us still to do on the breakdown of who is it different age groups, women, men, those e-bikes, not e-bikes. There's still work to be done in that space at the moment. A lot of the data we have is numerical, but we understand that the type of person riding is changing, and that's very much something we're trying to enable through safer paths. We know that there's people out there in the community that want to ride but currently don't because they're fearful of traffic conditions. And very much these projects are around broadening the appeal of cycling so that a mix of people can ride. And as that happens, we'll be collecting data on that change over time. So we know there's some inequalities in participation at the moment, focused on men and middle-aged bracket, and these projects are looking at opening cycling up to a far broader range of people.
Excellent. And so do you know at the moment what is the sort of cyclist typology that's using this route at the moment?
At the moment, this is primarily, we call them the strong and confident. I can actually show a slide around this one. So we do know that something of around, this slide gives us a bit of an idea. We've got the strong and fearless, they're called here, the ones that will take on traffic. And then we've got the enthused and confident, which are the next sort of group. And so somewhere between 3 and 20% of our community are likely willing to use this route in its current form. So what we're targeting here is this 48% out in the community who are interested and concerned, they're known as, so they would like to cycle. And we have some data around that, but currently can't. So at the moment, we're having these two groups, less than 20% likely willing to ride on this route. We want to open it up to that other almost 50%.
Yeah. So you can see there on that slide, and as Lindsay was saying, our whole objective of the integrated cycling network is to make cycling more attractive to people of what we say are all abilities in terms of cycling. And as you can see from that slide, there's currently quite a large gap that we need to fill if we're going to get more people participating in cycling. Because generally, as you all know, parents are not comfortable in allowing their children to ride on the road because it's not safe, and I can understand that from the parents. And so we're really trying to offer a network that is much safer for all people of all riding abilities to be able to look at cycling as an option to get either from just A to B in a short trip or A, B, C, D, E in a long trip. So really that's the whole reason why we're looking at these sorts of cycleway designs going forward.
There is one here that relates directly to the data.
Yeah,
it might be worth us.
We can. So we have a question here. Are you saying that the data is from 2015? It seems that this plan has not been well thought through.
So we have 2015 data, and we're adding current data to that now. So the count should be out last week in this, and that'll give us that comparative analysis.
Okay, excellent. So we've finished that question. Another data question. What surveys have been done on shared traffic ways, car, cycle and pedestrians? Current pedestrian use of footpaths, particularly intersections. So this is asking us, what have you done in terms of what we call shared cycleways? What sort of surveys have been done for that?
Some of that will be captured in the other data that we've been discussing previously. Otherwise, that question might be well answered when the traffic report is available. If there are outstanding questions following that, at that point you can ask us for some further information.
Yeah. Shared paths are controversial for many different reasons, where you have a mix of cars, cycles and pedestrians, and as I mentioned before, we're trying to develop a network where we can provide people with the safest and most direct form of connectivity between destinations for people who want to walk, cycle or drive. So it's a delicate balance that we tread in trying to do that with the limited amount of space that we have to work with in our current road and footpath network. This is the next question, 17. What traffic consultant analysis has been carried out? Okay, so Lindsay, we've already asked that question. Now we're going into some questions regarding the promotion and community consultation engagement process for this project. So the first question that we have there is, why were so few stakeholders notified? This is a direct violation of the community engagement protocols. And so I might, Lindsay, are you able to answer that question?
Yeah, so a direct letter should have been sent to everyone that was along the route. There's been some feedback that hasn't occurred in a handful of locations. We've been back to check the consultation map or the list of properties that were notified, and some of those that have been raised as not getting a letter were on that list. So we can follow up with our mailing house to make sure that the number we sent through is the number that got distributed. But certainly we do those distribution lists off a GIS map, and we put a box around the entire area that we look to notify, and then those addresses get generated automatically and added to a letter and then sent out. So definitely those businesses near Innis Street, the James Milson Village were definitely within the area that was identified for notification, and so that there should have been letters at least sent.
Yeah. So the summary of the engagement to date is 2,600 properties along the route have received a direct letter. The project web page to date has had 906 views. There's been 234 downloads of the plans that were on our website, 96 downloads of the fact sheet, 55 downloads of the direct letter that was sent out to those 2,600 properties, 4 downloads of the council report from November 2020 on this. As of May 19, that's a bit old, but we've received 30 comments on our website, 30 likes. It shows that we've reached 6,771 people, including 679 post clicks. We've put an advertisement in the Mossman Daily on the 20th of May, and as part of these sessions, we know that 34 people registered for the first online session that we had back in May, and we have roughly, we think, about 22 odd people participating to date. So the engagement for this project has been in accordance with Council's policies and procedures. And look, as far as engagement goes, those statistics that I've just read to you show that there has been quite a lot of participation in the project and the process so far. 234 downloads of the plans shows that people are looking at this carefully. I would have to say that we have had quite a good response so far. And the submissions close on 14th of June. So we've still got a couple of days to go after this long weekend, and hopefully those statistics will also show a jump in the number of people who are looking at this. So the next question, again, this is on engagement. Why weren't residents notified by mail that a mistake was made on the plans?
We have noted that error on our online page. For that error to be notified, would have been an intensive exercise here, a resource intensive exercise that would have also had a cost implication. So on balance, that was notified via the web page updates. And I think another point around that's worthy of making is that as these are very much the first run of plans, where we hear about those or any errors or amendments or deletions that are required from the community, where there is further iterations of plans to come, in which those concerns can be addressed or amended before these plans are re-exhibited.
Okay. Question 20, we're sort of getting near the end of the written questions. Question 20, other mistakes have been made on these plans, such as the width of Broughton Street. Why has this mistake not been noted or rectified on the plans?
I think, again, with these comments, if this is, I'm not sure of what the error would be. There's the page for Broughton Street. I think it has the cross section there at 10.6 metres, which looks in terms of, we take these measurements off an aerial photo and then we do detailed designs on surveys, so that looks within the tolerance of what our aerial mapping would say. But if there is an error and that 10.6 is wrong, please feel free to include that in your submission, and all of these comments get collated and filtered into the right categories, so that when we do go to do a full design, if the project proceeds to that, they're all captioned and we can make sure that they're all addressed.
Okay, thank you for that one. This is a question about funding sources, and it states that although it has been said that Transport for New South Wales was, or I think it meant to say, has awarded a grant for these works, it's my understanding the grant will not be released until concrete plans are in place or accepted by council. Therefore, how much ratepayer money has been spent on external consultants who developed the faulty plans? So, yes, it's true, Transport for New South Wales has awarded a grant for this project, which is roughly
2.7.
$2.7 million, but there was a council resolution that the grant or accepting of this money is conditional upon council doing consultation, which is what we're doing at the moment, and also that the consultation outcomes show majority community support. So council cannot accept the grant in its entirety to go forward with this project unless the outcome of the community consultation on this project shows that there is majority community support. So that's what we will know on the 14th of June when we receive the submissions, collate all the submissions and determine and work out how much of those submissions were supportive or not supportive of the project. So that's the position that council has taken. Obviously, if it's not supported, majority supported by the community, it won't go ahead. If it is majority supported by the community, then obviously we have to take it to the next stage of design and look at all of the issues that were raised during the consultation and do another design, taking on board all of the requested changes to the route. In terms of money, and this being the construction of this project is going to be 100% funded by Transport for New South Wales. Council has had to pay for the consultants who prepared the plans to date, and that money is in the vicinity of just less than $100,000. And that money is money that we have in our delivery program for the Cycleway network that was adopted by council. So each year our Cycleways program gets money allocated to it by council. It's not a lot of money, it's a couple of $100,000. And that money is used to prepare designs and prepare concepts for our cycleways that we then go and ask for money because we never have enough budget or enough money to actually do the capital works, the building works ourselves. But we have to do designs to show that we have got intent and that we do have our routes decided and worked out on so that we can ask for that capital money. And that's then what Transport for New South Wales have looked at that, our integrated cycling strategy, and said, yes, council's got a strategy, council has a route selection that fits in with our overall strategy as well for cycling on the lower North Shore, and we're therefore prepared to give council money, proper money, construction money, to build the route. Question 22, what is progressive and sustainable? This question, we couldn't make sense of this question, so I won't answer that question. And I think that brings us to the conclusion of all of the written questions that everyone has sent in prior to today's meeting. We've got about 15 to 20 minutes left at the moment. I'd like to firstly just thank everybody who went to the trouble to write the questions before today's meeting. That's very helpful for us. It gives us a bit of time to prepare answers for those questions. So please, thank you very much for that. We're now going to go on to some of the questions that I've just been handed that have been sent in during this particular session right now. So we'll try and get through those questions that I've just been handed, and there's a few that we will answer now. And so the first question I've got is, it says here, and I think this is a consultation question really, it seems to us as though the work should have been done before informing the community. I think this question's asking is the work on, is this the statistical analysis work? And as Lindsay's pointed out, we have done a lot of work on trying to determine, I guess, if you like, the need for this. And the need for this route was identified back in 2014 when council adopted the strategy. So there was a need identified back then. And as I said, council has progressively implemented the strategy, and we're down to really just one last route out of the 5 priority routes that have been implemented so far. When we do this work, we only take it to the concept stage because we like to then, before we spend any more money, time or resources on going into detailed design, we'd like to hear from the community about what we've got as a concept or an idea. We then refine it as we hear back from the community into more detailed design, and then eventually we build it. But only when we've gone back to the community, or we've gone to the community to say, here's a concept, an idea. And remember, it's concept. It doesn't have great amount of detail in it, because if we did that, a lot of that detail would end up becoming redundant work when the community comes back and says, we don't like this, or we want this changed, we really like this, can you add that? So that's why what you see here now is really a concept design for this project.
I can add something also on the need. It's not yet released, but the Transport for New South Wales is, I mentioned it earlier, working on the principal bike network. And this route, the need for this route has come up again in the data analysis that they've done, and it cropped up in they've mapped all of the routes across Sydney, and in terms of need around safety, demand and the like, this route has cropped up in the top 10 priority routes across the entire city. So I guess their data has confirmed that there is demand and need around safety on this route.
Okay. There's another question here, and this is really a specific question about the footpath of Broughton Street between Mcdougall and Innis Road were cyclist only. What if the western footpath of Broughton Street between Mcdougall and Innis was cyclist only? Would that meet standards, and could that be shared?
Difficult for us to comment on without a detailed investigation. I would recommend suggesting it as an idea in the submission, and as with all of the ideas that are put forward, it's something that, should we proceed to the detailed design stage, we can have someone investigate using survey and the Ost Road guidelines to see if a compliant facility can be put in there, and if it could be connected to other parts of the network. So difficult to say just by looking at it without a detailed survey and without the detailed investigation, but I would say any of these ideas, please put them in submissions, and we can look at where the design can be made better.
Next question, again on Broughton Street. Broughton Street is the only way into Kirribilli. Council should have been aware of this. This will impact more than those that live along the proposed route. Broughton Street tapers. Have you measured the widest point of Broughton Street outside my house, where it's 9.7 metres?
Similar to an earlier question, all of the plans would be done using a detailed survey, so that's highly accurate. We then look to guidelines such as Ost Roads, which is the guiding document for road design in Australia, and it will set out minimums for safety. So it will say, for example, a lane needs to be 3 metres wide in a given location in a given setting, and all of those Ost Roads requirements are then overlaid and checked off on that survey. So in all cases, there isn't a scope for us really to install something that doesn't adhere to those safety and access requirements, and then nothing that we design is ever constructed without then going through review of the North City Traffic Committee, which includes members from the state government, Transport for New South Wales, the police and the local member, and then also for a project of this scale, it needs to go through a third-party safety and access review, called a road safety audit. So there are guidelines that we need to follow, and then there are several checks along to ensure that anything that gets constructed is indeed safe and trafficable.
Okay. We're almost down to the last question here, and this is a question: did councillors examine the plans beforehand? And look, I'd like to firstly refer back to this route again was identified as part of our integrated cycling strategy in 2014, which we did extensive public consultation on at the time, the 5 priority routes. That report was brought to council in 2014. This route is one of those routes. So the council of 2014, when this was adopted, were fully across this route and these plans as part of the integrated cycling strategy. The current council has also been briefed on this and a number of other cycleway routes that we recently received funding for from Transport for New South Wales. The councillors were briefed on this, and we brought a report to council on this on November last year, 2020. And it's that report, and you're more than welcome to go and look at that report online, that is where council resolved that if these routes, and there were 3 projects that got funded from Transport for New South Wales, this one and 2 others, if these routes and cycleways did not receive majority community support, this is the council resolution, then they would not proceed. And we would have to look at giving the money back or not proceeding. So that was a resolution of council in November 2020. So councillors have been informed, both the old council, if you like, way back in 2014, and also the new council on this particular project and the other 2 projects that we received funding for in November 2020, where they made that resolution. So the answer is yes, they have seen the plans before and they're well aware of the plans. So I don't think at this stage we've got any other questions. I haven't been given any other questions from our engagement manager at this stage. So, and we are running fairly close to time and finishing. I would encourage you to please put in a submission. Remember, submissions close on the 14th of June. We will be taking all submissions on board, and we're trying to get a report up to council in June. If it's not the June council report, it will be the July council meeting, and all that we'll be reporting up to council is the outcome of the consultation. So, because council then needs to make a decision on the outcome of the consultation, and if the outcome is, as per the resolution of council, this route receives majority community support, we proceed. If the outcome of the consultation is this route has not received majority support from the community, then it doesn't proceed, and that will be the decision made by council. We won't be putting a report up suggesting or providing a new design. We'll just be simply asking council to look at the results and make a call on whether we should then proceed or not proceed to undertaking changes to the route to facilitate design, or not making any further work or progress on this route at all. So that'll be a decision made by the council either at June or July meeting. But of course, all that information will be up on the website as to what meeting of council this report will be going to, and that's really the next steps for this project going forward. Once again, please put in submissions. We want to get as many submissions as possible to make sure that our engagement and understanding of what everyone's opinions, ideas and suggestions are as soon as you can, and we will be then preparing the council report on the basis of when those submission date closes. So, Lindsay, have you got anything else you'd like to say?
Not overly. If there are questions, specifics, what you're welcome to email me, and I will do my best to either answer them in the short term or following that consultation period. I'll do my best to answer the ones I can in that period. So feel free to submit questions to me at that time.
So thank you everyone for your participation today, and we look forward from hearing from you in the near future. So thanks very much.
Thank you.